Here are my 5 most common mistakes when it comes to flipping property. Now, as somebody who's been flipping property for over a decade and also the founder of the PBK community, I've learned how to avoid these costly mistakes that can cost people tens and even hundreds of thousands of pounds. If you want to learn how to avoid these mistakes, make sure you watch this video to the end. Number 1 is underestimating the cost of the renovation. Now, too often people will underestimate how much things are going to cost, think they could potentially cut corners, think that everything's going to be okay. But a lot of the time we're working with 100-year-old buildings and the wallpaper can be what's holding up the wall. You can hope that you can save the plumbing, but really find out the entire system's full of sludge. So I think you have to make sure you firstly consider all of your potential costs, and secondly also make sure that you have a significant contingency for the what ifs. Because in the words of Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and that's very much the case when it comes to renovations. Number 2. Overly optimistic timeframes. Too often do I see people say they're going to be in and out of their flip in 6 months, but the reality is it takes a lot longer. Now, often people will budget maybe 2 months for their renovation period, but realistically, because of things that come up, it actually ends up taking 3 months. They'll assume their property is going to sell straight away, but sometimes it can sit on the market for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. There can also be things during the conveyancing process, like a buyer pulling out last minute, which means you have to go back to market. All of these things can massively elongate your timeframes, and while it's good to be optimistic, you also need to be realistic. Now, the implication of overrunning your timeframes are twofold. Number 1 is if you've got a loan on the property, your cost of finance is going to increase, which is going to reduce your actual profits. Number 2 is if you take double the amount of time, your return on investment actually halves because you've been way more inefficient when it comes to your annualized returns. And as you know, in this industry, return on investment is king. Number 3 is missing crucial costs. Now, throughout the whole journey of flipping a property, there's a lot of costs involved that people often miss, and I'm going to give you a few of them right here. So when you're purchasing the property, if you're buying with a bridging loan, for example, the lender's solicitor costs, also the costs of your survey, maybe your mortgage arrangement fee. All of these things factor in. So whilst you may have considered your cost of finance, there's a lot of different intricacies you need to make sure that you consider. Whilst owning the property, have you considered what your bills are going to be? Potentially your council tax, then even your professional fees throughout the build. Do you need a license to alter agreement? Maybe a party wall agreement? Loads of other things that could cost you money that you may have not factored in. And even on exit, the cost of your estate agents. What percentage are you going to allow for estate agents, or even potentially staging the property so you can maximize the value? You have to make sure that you have a tick box of all of the things that can cost you money so you can effectively appraise a deal when starting out. Number 4 is doing good comparables. Now, you're going to make your money based on how much you can sell the property for. And if you get that wrong, your numbers are going to be way off. So you need to make sure your comparables are as similar as possible. That means, is it the same type of property? I.e., compare a Victorian property to a Victorian, not a purpose built. The size, is it the same square footage? The condition, what does the finish look like, and then things like amenity space and proximity to stations and transport links. If you get all of those things right and you're looking at sold data as well as current properties on the market and engaging with local agents, you should be in a really good place. Number 5 is massaging the numbers. Now, what do we mean by this? This is effectively where you try and manipulate figures to make a deal work for you when in reality you know that it just doesn't stack. I see people do this when they overestimate the GDV, so pushing up what the property is going to be worth based on hope rather than realistic data, or ignoring experience based on build cost and saying hopefully maybe I can get the deal done for less, but the reality is not going to happen. You're not going to get it done in half the time just so you can reduce your finance costs. You have to listen to your numbers, put all of your data into a spreadsheet. In-house here we use the PBK deal analyzer, and that's how we really appraise deals and make sure we're buying profitable properties that can make a good return on investment. So they are my top 5 tips when it comes to avoiding costly mistakes when flipping properties. And if you avoid all of those, hopefully you'll have really profitable property investments. If you want to learn more about the PBK community, the link is in the description. But before I let you go, I'm going to give you one more bonus mistake that you should really avoid as somebody flipping property, and that is, do not over personalize your refurbishments. Too often do I see people putting in exactly what they want when you need to be thinking about end user, who's going to buy your property, and tailor it to a broad market so you can make sure you can attract a wide pool of buyers. If you've enjoyed this video, as always, make sure you subscribe, as we'll be back each and every week with loads of top tips to help you be the best property investor that you can be.